How's it going, y'all? I just wanted to do a video, an electoral map based on my predictions of four different factors. That is, of course, we start with polls, then we also look at betting markets, betting odds. We look at ad spend from these different campaigns, ad spend on meta platforms like Facebook, etc. I'm not actually looking at that right now, but I'm factoring that into my calculation. And so also we have fourth component, which is going to be Google Trends. So the overall map is going to be a bit different from those that you usually see in different videos that go over these electoral maps. So without further ado, let's get started with that. Now, I'm going to start with filling in Democratic solid states. That's going to be Washington, California, Hawaii, Illinois as well. I mean, a lot of people on the Republican side have actually been saying that there's a chance that Illinois could drop below 15%. I don't think that's a possibility yet because the urban areas that actually influence Illinois' blue state is are mostly predominantly black voters. Like for example, Chicago. You could say Chicago could also be one of those demographics. And we actually saw there was a poll out there that Trump is poised to actually get more black voters than he got in 2020 against Joe Biden. But not only that, but also uh, it was going to be a landslide, something like 17% of the black voters, which I think is a bit of an exaggeration. But even if he gets like 13 to 15% of the black voters, that would be substantial for him. That would be amazing, and that's what I think will be the case because he got 6% of the black voters against Hillary Clinton, and he did a little better for when he was running against Biden. Now, if you have a look at all the others, we have New York. That's also gonna be, in my opinion, it's also going to be solid blue. Vermont, we have Massachusetts, Connecticut, New Jersey, probably going to be solid as well. But it would probably be close when it comes to whether it would be solid or likely margin. We have Delaware, Rhode Island. Also, Delaware was pretty close, as Kamala was nominated because, as you guys know, Delaware is the home state of Joe Biden, and he was leading with a comfortable margin. But after that, it sort of dropped in panic, and then it's just been recovered after a campaign in Delaware. And you also have Maryland and D.C., of course. And hope I'm not missing any solid ones. No, I'm not missing any solid states, of course. And of course, we have the second district of Nebraska, and also in this case, I'm also going to fill in the first district of Maine. Both of these are, of course, going to be solid blue. Now, if you have a look at Republican solid states, we'd start with Utah, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska 3rd District, 1st District, and also Nebraska as a whole, Kansas, Oklahoma. Also have a look at Missouri. So Missouri actually has been leaning a little bit on the other side, but of course we're gonna have it Republican. But also Kansas itself, with its policies, has been leaning to the left with its abortion policy predominantly, but it's not gonna get flipped yet. Don't worry about it. Arkansas, we have Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, West Virginia, Kentucky, Indiana, and South Carolina. These are going to be solid states for Republicans. Based on the solid states, you could actually say that yes, Democrats are really leaning, but just wait for what's coming and what my thesis is going to be and what my official prediction is going to be for this election. Now, if we just have a look at the likely margins and the lean margins, just feel those for the Democrats. We have Oregon. It's going to be lean margin for Oregon. it's been carried by 12%. I think that we will see similar margins. Also, the case of Obama, which was a better case, generally considered to be a better case, and I think that's something that we will see. And now, if you have a look at like what will actually happen in the future for Oregon, I think that it could actually get flipped at some point, but not yet, not in this election. If you look at, we also have Colorado that was supposed to also be solid state, about 15%, at least about 12%, but none of those are actually going to be crossed. I think that Colorado will actually be going to Democrats with less than 10 points margin, possibly less than 8 points margin. Therefore, it's going to be lean Democrat. Now, we have sort of the same scenario for New Mexico. I'm going to have to settle with just about, 4 to 7 points for New Mexico, which is going to be, again, lean margin. Sorry, it's going to be actually a lean margin, yes, not the likely margin, which is supposed to be 7 to 15 points. 15 points and above is, of course, going to be solid margin. If we have a look at, well, I guess we are done with that when it comes to this side of it, and now we can move to the east. We have Minnesota. That's, I think, is going to be extremely close. I was going to provide, I think I will actually leave it as a swing state, and I will show you guys how that actually happens and what route Trump could take to even flip Minnesota after Walz was nominated as the nominee of as the presidential nominee of the Democratic Party. I think that could be a possibility, and I will explain how that could occur. Now, if you have a look at Virginia. Virginia was supposed to be, some people are saying it could be a solid state, or at least it could be a likely state, likely margin. I think that Trump may even be able to flip Virginia. Therefore, I wouldn't cover it right now. And we also have New Hampshire, which I think is going to go to either lean margin or also maybe likely margin to the Democrats. I'm gonna mark it as a lean margin because that's what I think is going to actually happen in this case. Because New Hampshire was a legitimate swing state as Biden was running against Trump. Legitimate swing state, I would say they at some point they had even chances of as in which candidate would actually win. And right now I would say it's pretty close as well. Now let's get into the Republican states. We can start with Texas. Texas, I think it could even go to the Republicans by double digits. There's a chance of that, but it's definitely going to easily and comfortably be in that 7 to 15 points likely margin category, and that's going to be extremely comfortable. There has been a major narrative on Reddit and other platforms to somehow get people to actually vote Democrat in Texas. As you guys know, there has been a major influx of people from California moving to Texas. Now, because of a lot of its regulations and policies, and you would think that these people would be against those to be implemented in now their home state, which would be Texas. But no, actually, they still vote for Harris. Well, let's say for Democrats, and that is going to stay and resemble in Texas as well as Florida and Alaska. The margins are going to be extremely similar in terms of what, if anything, changed during the Hurricane Milton in Florida. Only negative for Joe Biden, only negative because the state of emergency did work, but you have to file a lot of things. I know I have a few friends in Florida. Same thing for North Carolina. A lot of people got hit in Asheville, and a lot of people don't even file for the reimbursements for their damages because it's extremely complicated, and I think it's, the process is, in my opinion, deliberately fabricated, but that's another topic. Let's not get carried away. Let's have a look at Alaska, what could actually happen in Alaska. I think that there was that women in Alaska are going to vote Democrat. That was a major movement movement from women in Alaska. It's just that male voters are predominantly voting for Trump, even though Alaska, as we know, Trump made an all-time low of 60 years in Alaska in terms of the margin that he won against Biden, right? And also pretty low margin against Hillary Clinton. Is that going to happen again? I would say it could happen again, but the point is that Alaska is not going to get flipped, and it's probably going to be in that likely margin. That's what I would say about Alaska. Now, let's have a look at Ohio. Ohio, as you guys know, has added a few points after, and we can see the polls, have shifted basically for Vance in Ohio. I think that's going to have effect. And if you have a look at polls in Texas, right? If you just have a look at polls in Texas, you can clearly see that it's 5.7 RCP average, 5.7 lead, right? And that's of course unrealistic with the current. If you have a look at who actually conducts these polls, also you have University of Texas, you have I don't know what this pollster is, but University of Houston, New York Times at Siena College, really you could say left-leaning pollsters. I have to say that Texas, Alaska, and Florida are going to go likely margin to Donald Trump, in my opinion. Now we have a look at Ohio. Ohio actually was supposed to go 4 points according to CNN, and also based on RCP average slight lead. According to CNN, it was supposed to go to Joe Biden by just 4 points, but actually went to Trump by 8 points lead. That was one of the biggest fails of CNN polls. They went really out of their way to make Biden look like he was winning this state, and also a lot of other states. So there was a landslide predictions, and that didn't really come true. Even the blue vote, Rust Belt states, swing states, and Rust Belts. It was just hilarious, to be honest. Like, how could you honestly think that Ohio could, in general, could be more, blue than, let's say, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, right? So Ohio is going to, come close to solid margin, but I don't think it's gonna happen. I think it would mostly fall into the likely category. Same as Iowa. Iowa, as you guys know, has major urban areas, but that won't really make up for it. The metropolitan areas just won't make up for it because farming is really active in Iowa, as you guys know, and there are a lot of farmers and small entrepreneurs in Iowa that will be voting red. Now, in terms of now let's have a look at the swing states. Before I get into the swing states, have a look at Minnesota. Why I think that Trump would actually flip Minnesota, because Minnesota has been, of course, leaning, had that trend of actually leaning for Trump during Biden's run against him, and generally it would be a close race in Minnesota if Biden was not replaced, and then basically it went up after that. Minnesota really had that relief after Walz was nominated, and that has been changing recently, I have to say, as you guys know, because generally Harris, Walz are having problems with the white men, actually, and white and blue collar workers as well. Therefore, I think that Minnesota has a chance of actually going to the Republicans by a really small margins, really thin margins. That could be a major flip for Donald Trump in this case. And I think that could also be the case for Virginia, which could be a bit of an exaggeration, as some of you could judge it, and I would completely understand it. But Virginia is probably even closer than, let's say, Minnesota. And if you have a look at the polls in Virginia, it says, well, like if you have a look at Christopher Newport University poll, also you have Rasmussen reports saying that it's going to be 3%, just 3%. They're stating that it's going to be a really close race, and that was a while back. I'm factoring that in. I think that it's gonna be a better environment for Trump recently, and also this 11 points poll is unrealistic and actually really, messes up the aggregate. So we have to say that I think it's going to be extremely close, and I would say there's about a 30% chance that Trump could actually carry the state by an extremely thin margins. And if he actually does one or two ground campaigns in Virginia and focuses a little bit of his digital ad spend on Meta platforms, this could actually turn red. Therefore, we will, in this scenario, I would probably mark it as red. Sorry. And now let's have a look at the swing states. I'm gonna go over them real quick. Let's start with Arizona. Arizona has been shifting to the right. As we know, Biden was able to carry it by 0.31%, which was not enough, which will not be enough anymore. And actually, he was losing by a landslide before he got replaced. There were some polls, actually. Let me pull up Arizona to show you guys what I'm talking about. There were some polls by Wall Street Journal as well, and that's basically expired, saying that actually Harris was leading in Arizona, but these turned out to be extremely isolated inside these metropolitan areas of Arizona, which would of course shift the actual results to the left, because of course, as we know, urban and metropolitan areas tend to vote Democrat. Now, currently Trump is leading by 1.8%. That's the aggregate. And right now Wall Street Journal actually thinks that it's going to be carried by Harris by 2 points, but that's actually from September 28 to which is absurd. It's going to be it's going to be carried by him as they say. It's going to be but I don't think so. It's September 28th, not even to date, but actually 8th of October. So I don't think this is relevant anymore. A lot of things changed, and yeah, I think that that she's going to face problems in Arizona, and I think Arizona could actually go to Donald Trump by a lean margin. Now, this victory could be, of course, substantial. We actually had Nevada being even when these different swing states were going to Donald Trump. Now, new polls in Nevada actually show that's not Nevada. Actually show that if you have a look at, I don't know what this poll is, but if you have a look at Insider Advantage, also Atlas Intel, they already show tie in Nevada, and also Rasmussen Reports actually is reporting a 2% lead for Trump. Also, a lot of sentiment shift has been shown. Also, betting markets are shifting to Donald Trump in Nevada. He is leading by 60. His odds are 62% in Nevada, and actually 74% in Arizona. Basically a solid state at this point. I mean, it's just hilarious that there were some polls, a massive series of polls saying that Arizona was going to go to Kamala Harris. Now, of course, Nevada is going to go to Trump, but realistically it will be under 2 points, not even close to like that 4 points threshold that would be lean. Therefore, we are going to fill it as swing Republican. Now let's get into Georgia, which is also going to be a landslide. Trump was able to win it over Clinton by 4 or 5 points, but Biden was able to, well, we cannot say flip it back, but by a really small margin. But Biden was able to, really lower it to just 0.3% or something like that. It was a really close race in Georgia, and as well as, let's say, these Rust Belts. And I have to say that Georgia is going to be really interesting, but I think that it could not really cross that 4% threshold that we are, talking about. But I guess it could go up, get close to that threshold. We will see if that happens. But in Georgia, we know that the densely populated areas of Georgia and a few counties actually are actually voting, as we know. Like if you look at Atlanta, we have a major black population in Atlanta, and it's predominantly Democrat, but that won't actually help it. You can clearly see that the rest of Georgia is red. A lot of big counties as well are going to be voting red. Therefore, I will mark it as just a swing Republican state, but almost going up to that lean threshold. Now, finally, we have just these 4 states left, and also we have to fill Maine, which I will fill actually right now Democrat, because we know that it's going to be Democrat. The first district is just so much, better, so much more densely populated, and also heavily populated compared to the second district. There's no way that this could flip. Now let's have a look at North Carolina, which is extremely important state that Trump was able to carry both times. He was able to carry the smaller margin next time, but that didn't really have an effect. 1.3 to 1.4%. I don't exactly remember, but right now North Carolina is supposed to be going just by 4.4%, but I don't think that's going to happen. You can see insider advantage, which shows tie in Nevada is actually showing 2 points lead and also we have Atlas Intel, which is supposed to be really accurate pollster, showing 2 points lead for Harris. I don't know. I mean, I will probably base this on betting markets as well. We can see Rasmussen reports saying 5% lead, asserting 5 points lead in North Carolina. We can easily say that it's going to be swing Republican at least. Well, not at least. I guess that's going to be the margin. There's no way it can go up to lean right now if the election was held. Also want to say something else here that I don't want to make that mistake. I have to emphasize that if the election was held today, Trump would win. That there would be an 80 to 85% chance that Trump would actually end up victorious, but it's not held today. And what the betting markets and everybody else are pricing in is the October surprise, the potential October surprise, which is going to be hard to organize, but there's a dedicated team of investigators working on that specific side of the elections. I think that it could happen. There is that prospect of opportunity for them to actually flip this. How do I make that assumption? Because the Harris campaign has been extremely numb and hasn't been doing that much. Has been extremely inactive in major swing states. She basically abandoned Pennsylvania, while Musk is doing extremely active campaigns. As you guys also know, Trump did work in a fast food restaurant, McDonald's, recently, and I think that that actually solidified his lead in Pennsylvania much more than the polls actually show or the betting markets are predicting. Anyways, let's get into Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is going to go to the Republicans by a really slim margin, sure, but it's going to be under 2 points. It's going to be under 3 points, let's just say, in my opinion. If we have a look at the polls in Pennsylvania, it's 0.8% lead for Donald Trump. We have this Republican pollster starting 3 points lead. We have Atlas Intel and Rasmussen reports, both extremely accurate pollsters, showing 3 points lead respectively for Donald Trump. Also, Insider Advantage showing 2% lead for Trump, and even Emerson showing 1% lead. And well, as we expected, Quinnipiac actually is showing just 2% lead for Harris. And we saw certain states actually, we saw a different picture from this pollster in certain states. So I think that overall, Pennsylvania will easily go to Donald Trump if if the overall flow of voters will not change drastically and substantially in a swift way. Now, if you look at Michigan, Wisconsin, 2 states left, I think that Michigan is we have some metropolitan areas in Michigan. We can have a look at the detailed overview of this. If you have a look at Detroit, that's definitely, well, we have a part of Detroit is actually not audited, but you can see that, well, Detroit itself is more voting 92% in favor of Democrats, and then we can see you can see these areas actually voting, something similar to that. And then we also have in Detroit, there's not much else when it comes to like the urban areas and extremely densely populated areas. Rest of Michigan is extremely red, as you guys can see, like as red as any other actual red states that we can see. Same for Illinois. I mean, a lot of people have been commenting on some of my videos and some other videos that, like, how is Illinois actually going to go to the Democrats, and easy answer to that is Chicago and St. Louis. Both of these are leaning Democrat and are extremely densely populated and generally heavily populated as well, and those are going to go to Biden by significant margins. And also, so we see that Michigan itself, if you have a look at the overall turnout in Michigan, it's not solid at all. If you have a look at the polls in Michigan, they are already leading, as you guys can see. There's only Wall Street Journal that is left as as a poll that's actually showing lead for Harris in Michigan. She has been flipped, and I think that Michigan is going to go to Donald Trump single-handedly. I would have to say 1 to 2 points lead, actually 1 to 3 points lead, of course. Leaving that room, we have Atlas Intel showing 3 points lead. We have Rasmussen Reports showing tie, which is an older poll. I think things changed in Michigan, and a lot of things changed. I think that Rasmussen Reports at least would show 1 or 2 points lead in favor of Trump. I'm going to mark it, of course, as a swing Republican again. And finally, Wisconsin, which is going to just follow Michigan. If you have a look at the polls in Wisconsin, it's actually quite promising how it's going, because we don't have many polls yet. Insider Advantage showed tie. We can see Rasmussen Reports showing 2 points lead, it's not showing in, let's say, Michigan. Also, we can see that Atlas Intel has been showing Democratic lead, which is interesting, but I'm going to have to say that most likely Wisconsin is also going to go to the Republicans, and that's going to wrap up our electoral map. This is the final map that we've settled with. Again, some key changes to the general guideline that these maps follow. We can see Virginia going Republican by a really thin margin, and I think that there's also a higher chance of Minnesota going Republican if the October surprise doesn't turn out to be, really substantial, and actually like maybe flip it for Harris. I mean, if that's even a possibility right now. But if the October surprise doesn't happen, I promise you guys we will have Minnesota get flipped, and possibly Virginia as well go red. It's going to be really interesting, and I think this election is going to be extremely important, one of the most important elections in the history of this country. Make sure you go out there and vote. Is that for the Democrats or the Republicans, so that it contribute to the legitimacy of this election, and also use one of the only constitutional rights that you have over as a citizen over non-citizens of this country. And if you found value in this, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Even if you don't subscribe, have a nice day and peace.